Hi, I'm Wayne Henderson, and I had the good fortune to be a member of the Purdue drill team from the fall of '59 through the spring of 1963, during which time the team won the national championships 3 of 4 years. I also had the privilege to serve the team as drill captain from the fall of 1960 through spring of 1963. Now, there were two major factors that motivated me to serve as drill captain. The first was the influence of Ed Powers. Ed was the latest in a long line of outstanding drill captains, which included Dana Pillman, Marcus Clark, James Malsbury, and Stan Rohrer. I had the privilege to march under Ed's leadership during the 1960 spring competitions and to be part of that championship season. The second motivating factor, actually, was my instinct for survival. After being hit a few times by spinning Springfield rifles during practice sessions, I concluded I'd have a longer career if I could march with the team, but from the relative safety of marching outside the platoon as drill captain. Now, a little later, you'll have the opportunity to see a close-up of one of our teammates, Lewayne Wyatt, with a very conspicuous bandage on his left ear, the result of being clipped by the front sight blade of a Springfield during a practice session. That close-up says it all for me. Now, the exhibition season took place primarily during the fall, and as Vince Capasso explained earlier, we normally participated in about 4 or 5 regional competitions in the spring before heading for Washington, D.C. for the Nationals. Because of the Purdue drill team's reputation and record, we are also frequently invited to give exhibitions at the Pentagon and other federal venues around D.C. during that week of the Cherry Blossom Festival. Our 1961 team had the honor to receive a private audience with President Kennedy in the Rose Garden. Our team made President Kennedy an honorary member, and our commanding officer that year, Tom Hutzel, presented him with the drill team fourragere. Now, for each competition, tryouts were held, and a new team was fielded from the group of 70. The core team was then arranged by height. First, the 4 squad leaders were arranged by height, the 4th squad leader designated position of 4-1 being the tallest. Then the squads were filled out by descending height through the position of 1-6, which was the last marcher in the first squad. Now, during my tenure, the position of 1-6 was habitually occupied by Larry Ransberger, also affectionately known as Short Round. Now, while this process assured the visual symmetry of the drill team on the floor, it did present quite a challenge to the marchers. A marcher could be assigned position 2-5 in one meet, and then, for the next competition, be switched to a different position in the second squad, or even wind up in another squad entirely. Now, imagine being a football player playing halfback for one game, and then being switched to wide receiver, tight end, or offensive tackle, even center for the next game. One consequence, as you can appreciate, was that a serious amount of time was required to prepare for each competition, usually at 0 dark 30 every morning in the armory before breakfast or classes. Weekend and evening practices were also a given. The 4 alternates that were chosen had an even larger challenge. They marched behind or to the flank of the core team during each practice session, and they had to memorize each movement for each of the 6 possible positions in the squad for which they were the chosen alternate. In the days before the competition, we would then surprise them at any moment, have them rotate into one of the squad positions, and march a complete performance sequence in practice. Each competition also required a new combination and sequence of maneuvers, depending on the dimensions of the floor, the entry and exit locations, and the mandated performance time. There were serious penalties assessed for not utilizing the entire floor, or for underrunning or overrunning the time allotted. But even though the type and the sequence of maneuvers might change, there was an underpinning of precision and perfection that was a given, and that was basic marching and handling of the rifles. During the exhibition, new plebes and the old-timers were intermingled after the first few cuts and simply worked on basic military bearing and manual of arms, both stationary and while marching. The officers would coach from alongside to ensure not only the symmetry and length of marching step and cadence, but also to ensure each arm swing was uniform in length, 6 inches to the front, 3 inches to the rear. Sometimes an entire practice session was devoted to marching at simply right, port, or left shoulder arms, to make the fine-tuning adjustments on angle and cant of the rifles while moving. Untold hours were spent on the basics before spread movements or rifle spinning movements were even attempted. Proper body and rifle alignment and symmetry were literally drilled into each person's muscle memory. And that, in my opinion, was the Purdue drill team's secret weapon: total mastery of the basic elements. Active duty military judges used to comment on this aspect of the Purdue drill team after our performances. And to reinforce that point, I'd like to read to you the following letter to the editor from an active duty Army staff NCO who witnessed our team's 1962 national championship performance. Dear editor, Purdue University can justifiably boast of its numerous accomplishments in collegiate circles. The athletic teams, the marching band, the quiz bowl champs, etc. With regard to each, though, one cannot indisputably claim that it is the finest in the field. This only makes the performance of the Purdue drill team that much more remarkable. For in this facet of intercollegiate competition, Purdue stands aloft. Unfortunately, it is all too easy to take their superiority for granted. I, for one, never comprehended to the fullest extent the training, time, and talent essential to the molding of a national drill team champion. Never comprehended, that is, until this past weekend when I had the occasion to greet many of the rival participants representing 75 college teams competing for the national championship. In brief, the name Purdue to them is awe-inspiring, as those of the Celtics, the Colts, or the Yankees in their respective fields of endeavor. The members of this Purdue drill team are to be heartily commended for truly attaining the summit of perfection. And now, please enjoy a viewing of the 1962 National Championship team's performance in Washington. Purdue is the only team to break 800 points that day, with a total of 813. The second place team, North Carolina Raiders, scored 792, and Rutgers captured third place with 784. Only 14 teams scored above 700, while the rest of the competitors were evenly distributed between 500 and 600 point ranges. A little later, you'll also see some special close-up footage taken during the week of practice at the Anacostia Naval Air Station while the team was preparing for this competition performance. And now, please enjoy a viewing of the 1962 National Championship team's performance in Washington. Now, the officer team for the spring of 1962 championship season included Reese Nichols commanding, Jerry Kenyon, Jim Harper, Larry Short, and Kurt Bruce. That entire season, by the way, resulted in a clean sweep of first places by Purdue. Following the 1962 Nationals, you'll see some footage taken at a Purdue basketball game in the fall of 1963. Actually, the exhibition season was a more playful time for us all because we had friendly crowds, no judges, and more marching opportunities for the entire team, especially the new members. It was a welcome break from the intensity of the competition season. So now, sit back and enjoy.
This 1961 clip was found after Wayne did his initial monologue and the first history video was published.
Welcome to 5 Minutes of Magic. These are the trophies that were awarded to the winners. Each squad is now moving from the staging area to assume its position in preparation for the competition. My name is Larry Short, PDT 1960-1964. This film clip shows a close-up view. The next clip on this video will show you a panoramic view of the 1962 National Drill Competition. We won the national championship. This performance by the PDT was nearly perfection. The names of the movements are not important. It is the precision of the 25 men on that floor that is important. I wish there was recorded sound so you could hear the incredible cadence as each marcher dug their heels into that hardwood floor of the Washington National Armory. As you watch the next 4 minutes of maneuvers and movements, pay close attention to rifle positions, arm swing, rank dress, squad coverage, as all 24 marchers functioned as one Purdue drill team. This movement you're seeing here is star spread. Notice the rifle dress. I remember the hours and hours of team practice and individual hard work that made the magic 5 minutes come together. Notice the timing on the spins. This is spin inspection. This movement is the Wayne Wyatt Memorial Movement. Very dangerous for everyone except Wayne Henderson. This is the end of the movement called triple spread, where all the marchers cover the floor. We're finished now, except for collecting our national championship trophy.
You'll see in this view from the second camera on the opposite side that as the drill team marches onto the floor to begin our performance, the 4 alternates come to order arms and parade rest just before crossing the ropes that define the drill floor. I've nothing but admiration for the men that stood the 7th rank. There was no member more dedicated to the success of the Purdue drill team than those who would willingly do all they could to ensure a win, yet never truly know the full thrill of that victory. It's truly a shame that 46 years ago it just simply wasn't common to film using an audio track. It was part of what made us so different, part of the basics that Wayne indicated we worked so diligently to perfect, the step, the cadence, the unity. It was why we could separate to the ends of a football field and still come together 3 minutes later in perfect alignment, in perfect step. Was it all work? Not by the longest shot you can imagine. Others on this DVD have told you of victories, problems, successes, failures, great hopes, and dashed dreams. All serious business and all true. But there was playtime as well. Oh, yes. There were 12-hour bus rides to D.C. and shorter ones to other competition. Those of the proper age and credentials, of course, would on occasion imbibe of the fermented and various distilled beverages, and a paste cart or two was known to flutter about an upturned suitcase here and there. All, of course, engaged in a game of skill for the pleasure of better passing the time. The various bits of coinage abounding were not wagers, but rather the remnants of a collection taken for the poor sisters of charity for the betterment of man's journey through this cruel and wicked world. Once we arrived in the dazzling capital city, we of course toured the finest of museums and galleries to better the collegiate knowledge base, as befitted our status as students of a fine Midwestern university. That these were only open during the day, and we of course had to practice all day, was not a conundrum of our making, and we compensated as best we could to achieve learning wherever we could locate it. And locate it we did. Regular instruction periods were held evenings in the Hayloft, Marty's, Girl on the Red Velvet Swing, and other institutions of higher learning at the Capital Education Center, found at or about the intersections of 14th and H and its environs. A severe lack of transportation induced us to maintain our appropriate level of physical fitness through rigorous exercise. In other words, it's one hell of a long walk from downtown D.C. to Bolling Air Force Base and Anacostia Naval Air Station, where we were often billeted. Wayne Henderson and I spent many an hour in mutual support, hanging out a window, for instance, I, as befitting my stature, out the lower half, and Wayne, of course, the upper half. It's a proven fact that the average college student can actually thrive on a hangover, 2 hours sleep, and sufficient coffee to give the shakes to a stevedore. Many a practice session began with a plaintive plea to try the silent drill system used by Rutgers and other competitors. But always, regardless of the previous night's activities, Wayne's melodious and dulcet tones would call us to attention, and we would march as though we were angels. Thank God for muscle memory, for many a first hour or two of those practice sessions has been forever lost to oblivion. We were unique among others in the hours and effort each individual put into its success. Our method, selecting a team, murderous practice schedule, fanatical dedication to perfection, but above all, a common bond to each other, and a firm belief that every man around us believed as strongly as we in these same attributes. It made for an indomitable force. At almost every meet, we would be asked by some member of a competitor's team if it was true we were all on drill scholarships. I must admit that some of us carried our dedication a tad to the extreme when it came to balancing our academic requirements with our drill team activities. In all the years with the team and those after, I have yet to hear a single lament for the time spent with the drill team or the way that experience has served their lives since then. Quite the opposite are those occasional regrets for having skipped a meet or event because of some other activity or requirement. For many of us, it was one of the most fulfilling and rewarding experiences we have known, overshadowed only by family and our careers in the military and business. The success we achieved in those was built on the principles of dedication, service, and loyalty, honed to a keen edge by sweat, Hopi's No. 9 oil, and Kiwi black polish on the drill floor of the Purdue Armory. We, of course, won in 1962, and then took second in 63, third in 64, my last year at Purdue. A slump, we thought. Happens to the best. We'll get back on top. Little did we know that 1962 was to become the acme of success on the national level for the Purdue drill team. Feelings against Vietnam and a variety of anti-military woes for all Purdue drill team members, duty, honor, country, were never considered swear words or laughable antique philosophies, but were rather our way of life, our belief, our creed, our code. I spent the 25 years after graduation serving in the United States Army. Others on the team served in the Army as well, while many served in the Air Force, the Navy, the Marine Corps. Some for careers, some for a few years, some for as long as they lived. As a group, we have graduated from a fine university. We've traveled the world, seen the sights, fought the wars and corporate battles, started businesses, achieved success, overcome failures, and buried loved ones. As a group, we've grown a bit fat and sluggish and may not be able to get that rifle butt in quite tight enough to achieve the correct rifle angle. We've won some, lost some, been there, done that, and still have the T-shirt, albeit perhaps a bit tattered. In all that litany of accomplishments, successes or failures, I can think of nothing I have done that served me better, gave me greater joy save the birth of my son, or prepared me better or that I am prouder of than my years with the Purdue drill team. To have been there when it was at its very best is an indescribable joy and privilege. I find as I am writing this that an entire brigade of emotions well to the surface. Memories, faces, places, friends here and gone. The strange or perhaps almost expected sensation is that of all the things I have done in my life, the ones I remember with the greatest fondness and clarity, nearly all occurred while I was with the drill team. In the greater scheme of life, it pales beside most of what we have all accomplished. Yet I can't help but return each time to something drill team related when I remember the best times I've had, the best friends, the memories. For this I thank every member I have known over the years. It was, is, and shall always remain the greatest honor to have known you all.
Jerry Perkins here at Purdue from 58 to 62, plebing in the spring 60 in a very special class. Most of the meets I marched were spent in or near that 3-5 position, staring a hole in the back of Jim Wildbaker's head. I was blessed to have been on the 61 DC team that had a Rose Garden private performance for President Kennedy, and on most of the perfect season 62 teams, including the national championship. As you watch the 62 Purdue Invitational meet team, let me reflect a little bit on the unique feeling of that event. First is, this is the home turf, and all the other teams knew that these scholarship marchers had spent countless hours on this same floor, and that our skills and performances had been honed here. It was also a chance for our locals to get a chance to see us in close, familiar surroundings, and for them to appreciate the results of all those early morning, after class, and weekend practices. As it was at all meets, but especially true on this Armory floor, it was the battle cry of "Fight, Purdue, fight" that set the cadence, would bring the back of your head a little higher, your chin tucked in a little tighter, your palm sharper into the stalk, your heel firmer in the cadence, and your mind more intense. Each member knew every square inch of that floor and realized that there was no excuse for anything short of perfection. It was here that all the movements had been conceived, the sequences perfected, and the camaraderie cemented. To this day, Fight Purdue Fight and Bop Cadence brings back special memories and a special erect stature, or at least as close as this body, now nearly 50 years older, can attain. There's an old saying that goes, "The older I get, the better I was." Thankfully, these visuals we still have give credence to the record established and how good we was. The pleasure of marching in the alumni marching unit gives us the opportunity to show that it is not just history and lost, though maybe a little rusty, but still with oiling, still there. The Armory floor still feels the same. The PDT is one of the very special things in my life that makes me who I am, and that God allows me to remember, cherish, and sustain me for the rest of my life. And it all happened on that Armory floor.
Hello, my name is Ron Neubauer. I plebed the drill team my first semester, that would be the fall of 1960. During my plebe term, I was elected as plebe captain by my fellow plebes, an honor that still resonates in my memory. I served the team in a number of capacities during my tenure, including training lieutenant, service captain, and as the commanding officer. I was most fortunate to have been one of those selected to march on every competition team that was held during the time I spent with the PDT, including the 1962 National Championship team. Much like most marchers, I believed that I was at Purdue, not necessarily to complete my studies, but to march on the drill team. I always managed to maintain my grades at a sufficient level to remain off of academic probation, but, as was the norm with most members, it took 4.5 years to complete my studies. What I learned from my time with the team has served me throughout my adult life. Things like commitment, dedication, discipline, teamwork, and paying attention to small details have all become a part of who I am. During the competition season, the practice sessions were a study in perfection. Each movement was drilled into our memory until we could march the sequence in our sleep. The key we always followed was to make the difficult look easy and the easy look difficult. Even our exhibition routines were superior to most other teams' competition routines. One of the things that I found most interesting is when we would stage for our entry onto the competition floor, we would always watch the team performing before us. Whenever we were on the floor, The team that was to follow always turned away from us so that they wouldn't have to watch our routine. To this day, I look at this as a sign of respect and some fear that they would never be able to rise to our standard. I was asked to carry the guidon for the first time during the awards ceremony for the Dayton Invitational Drill Meet in 1961. It was a real kick. Whenever the opportunity presented itself where a guidon was needed, it seemed as though Wayne Henderson would ask if I would fill the position. While I would never give up a slot on the marching 24 in competition just to carry the guidon, I always would agree to do it for exhibitions. It became second nature to move with the drill captain. We had to coordinate our movements so it appeared as though we moved as one. We also had to ensure that we did not interfere with a marching 24, that is, be certain that we were out of their way. Another lesson I learned from my association with the drill team was absolute professionalism. We worked hard, we played hard, but never failed to present a professional approach towards everything that we did. When we would arrive at a competition, we would march off the bus. We would maintain soldierly bearing and would never be out of uniform. I am convinced that members of other teams were envious of us and what we stood for. We were and are a family, and truly a team of professionals.